All right, we're going to take a different path here with this 395 today. So we've been looking at trying to get more out of it and everything. There's a couple of videos already. So what we're doing today is we're going to go to a bigger sprocket. Probably won't work out, but we're going to find out. You know what I mean? So basically I made these changes to the build, and it's obvious in the videos. Whenever you watch the cuts from before to now, it's obvious I lost RPM in the cut. She was doing about 11.5 to 11.7 initially with a 7-pin sprocket in the cut. I switched it to an 8-pin, made some changes to the build. I was still pulling 11.5 to 11.7, but it's just not with as much authority as what the 7-pin could do. So the 7-pin would still be able to outrun the 8-pin sprocket. But we discovered the compression was pretty low after the changes, and I've been keeping an eye on the compression as time goes on here. So like our first cuts after the changes was at 165 pound of compression, where before I made any changes at all, it was at 170. So I lost 5 pounds. Then the next cutting session I made, compression came up to 175 pound of compression. So we gained 10 pound of compression just in one cutting session. And I did a compression test here again today. We're sitting closer to like 182. I'd say probably 182 pound of compression. So that's where compression test today is sitting at. So as these rings seat, we are seeing this thing, build more compression. And I'm hoping as time goes on, it starts running cleaner and better and everything. I did do another timing adjust on that last video, but it was only like 2 or 3 degrees. And you never expect a whole lot out of a timing adjustment. Just maybe help clean it up. I never really expect a whole lot though. You know what I mean? Timing adjustments can help, but help get you that final little bit, which, I got that out of this already. That last timing adjustment I made was just to help clean up the way it was running. I think it was running just a little late. So I gave it another 2 to 3 degrees. But today I'm putting it on a 10-pin to see if I built enough torque out of the changes, even though I'm at less RPM, to see if I can get more performance or more cut speed out of it with a 10-pin, and use the 10-pin to beat the 7-pin. Now, I tried this once before we went to Solfest, and there wasn't a whole lot of difference between a 7, 8, and a 10-pin. They were all cutting through the cut about the same speed. And at that time, I felt like the 8-pin was probably the better option. It felt the best, but I ended up racing with a 7-pin just because I felt like it would be the fastest. It's more forgiving for me, if I get a little heavy-handed and stuff. So I felt like 7-pin would have been best at the races. So after these changes, I went to an 8-pin because I really wanted it to pull an 8-pin good with authority. But we're running, it's cutting slower than what we were before. So now we're going to try it with a 10-pin, see if it makes a difference. See if we got more torque out of this build to be able to utilize the chain speed that the 10-pin would give me. So that's kind of what we're doing. Now, I did look at the spark plug whenever I pulled this off and did the compression test. She's dark brown. She's a little on the rich side, actually. She's a really, really, really dark brown, right in the edge of being black. So it is a little on the rich side. I got my screwdriver. We might have to do some tuning, but we'll see. The amount that it's on the rich side, though, it's not enough to make a difference. It's, you know what I mean? For as close as it is, it's really, you shouldn't have to worry about making any changes. But the sweet spot is probably just a hair lighter than what I had it on the plug. But that'll change as these rings seat. So we'll be playing with the tune until these rings are good and seated. And we are at about 182 today. I took a picture, so I'll be able to show you a picture of the compression tester. What do you say we go ahead and fire it up, make some cuts, and see if she's any faster with the 10-pin. Alrighty. Should check and make sure I turned the camera on for that. Yep, I did. Sometimes I forget to turn the camera on. I got to do it twice. All right, let's see what happens. I couldn't tell you either which way. I can tell you she's freaking pulling that 10 pin really well now. Like, it's not struggling, really. So I think we might be on the right path. The chain's pulling really hard though, and that might be part of what's slowing this 10 pin down. I don't know though. That could just be part of the chain speed, because I'm pulling more chain speed. It's probably going to pull a little harder. Rakers are not deep. It's like 23 thousandths. So it's not crazy. You know what I mean? I'm curious to see if this one is actually, if we're starting to pick up some cut speed here. I do think something's still holding us all back. I do think something's still holding it back. I do think I'm going to end up going into it. I'm actually thinking about putting another top end on it, is what I'm thinking about doing. So this is a taper top piston. I machined a taper top into the piston, but I machined it at 5 degrees. There's no pop up at all. You know, I did my port work. I didn't run it nearly as much today as I have in the past, so I don't think we're going to see a whole lot of a compression change between this one and the next time. But I'm thinking about putting another top end on. I think my carb might be undersized. Carb, exhaust, something. I think something is holding it back. And the fact that I can turn that freaking hijets as far as I can. So I'm almost completely out of adjustment on the hijet before it starts getting rich enough that it's really even trying to 4-stroke. Now, I mean, I could go into the carburetor and modify it to get more fuel out of it, but it's tuning at the sweet spot. So what I'm doing in the tune is I'm just basically feeling it. I'm feeling where I'm cutting with it. I'm getting the tune by feel and finding the sweet spot in the tune, and it's getting there. It's able to do that, but I'm thinking the carb might be undersized and holding it back. Like, I feel like something is holding it back. It's not super snappy off the throttle. She's got, I wouldn't say she's lazy. I mean, it is snappy, but not freaking bee, get away. But yeah, it's got some snap to it and stuff, but it's not as much as you would expect for the type of port work that I put into it. And I feel like the carb might be undersized on it. And part of me feels like that's a big part of what's holding me back. That or exhaust. The muffler could just be small on it. You know, I got the 2 3/4 inch ports. I don't know. She might want more muffler. I'm thinking one of those two things, or both. And I'm thinking about putting another top end on it. I mean, we got a whole other year, so we might put another top end on it. But right now with this 10 pin, I'm fine with it. Like, I don't know. Is it faster? I think part of what we might be looking at here in the first cuts that I made for the baseline might be the wood. I'm wondering, the first cuts just seemed a little softer. And I'm wondering if I'm comparing to a soft, really soft piece of this wood. You know what I mean? And I'll never be able to keep up with it. I think, like, the cut cookies are still here. Where are they? Where's my first cookies? Here's the first cookie I pulled off. It does feel a little punky. Compared to some of these others. Yeah, this is harder. Definitely. So that might be what's throwing me off. Yeah, that first piece. Yeah. I can feel it. She's not as hard. That's probably one of the things that's throwing us off here. I think my first cuts on this, the wood was a little softer. And that's, now that I'm into the middle of it, it's harder. And those comparison cuts are just not working. So I think from now on, we're going to have to move forward using everything but my first baseline cuts. I think those first 3 or 4 cuts I made were just softer, maybe on a punky side. But this feels much harder, this wood here. So there's good, yeah. You know where I'm going. I think we're gonna have to figure out another way here to kind of look at a baseline. Might be looking at the cuts on that cherry, because I've been cutting on that cherry for a while. So we might be looking at that cherry for the baseline cuts to see if I'm gaining. Yeah, I don't know. We'll see how she progresses, but we'll check in the next one later.